Colleagues, we're down to our last 3 issues, so please bear with us. We'll get this done as quickly as possible. You've been terrific. Issue 17, page 21. We're now in Subcommittee 5, Health and Human Services, the State Hospital and Developmental Center Oversight.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Mike Wilkening, Undersecretary of Health and Human Services. Over the last couple of years, I've testified in front of both houses on the inconsistencies and inadequacies in both the developmental centers and the state hospitals, and our commitment to fixing those problems. In the budget last year, there were positions and money for a CHP contract to start down this path to establish support positions, and also to require us to do a report to the legislature on recommendations for furthering the oversight of these important functions. To do that report, we engaged with many entities, including close collaboration with the Office of the Inspector General. I would characterize that as a good collaborative process. Through that process, we were open to input and have also modified our proposals. So in what we brought forward this time, we have an addition of vertical advocates, which was recommended by the Office of the Inspector General, to ensure that evidence is being collected, that witnesses are being interviewed, and the investigations are being done properly. In addition, Disability Rights California had some suggestions to ensure that the proposal would result in quality investigations with more independence. Those recommendations from Disability Rights California were shared with your staff this week. We think that those indeed would strengthen the proposal, and we're willing to adopt those. So the issue before you is a $2.6 million proposal and 15 positions that came in the April letter to provide the Office of Law Enforcement Support with authority and positions for oversight of administrative actions, and also for limited investigatory ability for the most serious offenses that are committed in these institutions.
Thank you, sir. LAO.
Drew Soderborg, Legislative Analyst's Office. We concur with the administration that greater oversight of the law enforcement activities inside of DDS and DSH is warranted. However, we note that under the administration's proposal, a key component of the Office of Law Enforcement Support, and in fact, the Office of Law Enforcement Support itself, would be underneath the California Health and Human Services Agency, which also oversees the activities of law enforcement in DDS and DSH, and therefore OLES would not be fully independent from the entities it oversees. To address this concern, we recommend that a portion of the new funding proposed for OLES, specifically the resources requested for the professional standards section, which would oversee the investigations, be redirected to the Office of the Inspector General, which currently provides similar oversight capabilities for the state's prison system. However, because OIG would be a completely separate entity, we feel that it could provide its oversight with greater independence. In addition, because OIG would already have the background necessary to carry out this oversight, we don't think that a proposed $600,000 for a contract to consult with outside law enforcement would be necessary. Finally, given the need to ensure that employee misconduct investigations are concluded successfully, we do recommend that you approve the positions proposed for the vertical advocate unit. We don't think that the same conflict of interest would exist with these positions as would exist with other aspects of the proposal.
Thank you, sir. Senator Hancock.
Yes, I concur with the statements of the LAO. We've discussed this, and I would like to move the staff recommendation, which does have support for 4 attorneys in the vertical advocate unit, but rejects the $600,000 reimbursement authority and augments the Inspector General's budget by $1,200,000 and 7 permanent positions so that they can oversee the Department of State Hospitals and the developmental centers in the same way they do our prison system.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, just a couple of clarification points. Relative to the LAO proposal, so the OIG does not perform investigations, so any investigatory aspect of the transfer couldn't go to them. And then the other is that most of the $600,000 in the contract is related to a CHP contract, which is for the support functions associated with this office and training for the investigators in the various departments to make sure that we're doing quality investigations. So it's not, there's a portion of that contract that we were planning to bring in somebody from the Inspector General's office for their expertise. Most of it's for the CHP.
Thank you. Mr. Soderberg?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that OLES would have some limited ability to carry out investigations. Our understanding is that currently the agency will contract with outside law enforcement. We also note that last year a serious misconduct review team was approved, which does include investigators. And so to the extent that the agency felt that they needed their own boots on the ground, we think that those investigators could be of use to them.
Thank you, Mr. Soderberg. So colleagues, we do have a motion by Senator Hancock, as she described in detail. We do have public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Kobe Pizzati with the California Association of Psychiatric Technicians. We support the governor's proposal and not the LAO's proposal. Unfortunately, the OIG does not have the experience dealing with a mental health patient population. Furthermore, they're not peace officers, so they can't do the criminal investigations. And finally, we have personal experience in dealing with them in the CDCR category in respects to their adverse actions. They develop an adverse action matrix. And we've had cases where we've had psych techs that have wrongfully given out a Tylenol to a patient when they should have been giving an Advil. They've received a 10% salary reduction for 6 months. What ends up happening is now we have to expend time and resources to appeal that adverse action. What's really sad to think is someone who doesn't know to go to their union and appeal this and get representation would then be forced to pay 10% of their salary for 6 months for a minor infraction. So we have to say we just have to oppose this, this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No other comments? Senator Stone? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the senator for making the motion with the LAO's recommendations. We have certainly seen and not been proud of the heinous and despicable acts that have happened to some of our DCs. And I was concerned, based on the original recommendation, that we were going to have the fox guarding the hen house. We need to make sure that our patients in our developmental centers are protected. Support the motion.
Thank you, Senator Stone. Seeing no other comments, we will call the roll.
Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Nielsen?
Aye.
Nielsen, aye. Allen? Allen, aye. Anderson?
Aye.
Anderson, aye. Bell? Bell, aye. Block? Block, aye. Hancock? Hancock, aye. Mitchell? Mitchell, aye. Monning? Morlock? Wynn? Han? Han, aye. Havley? Havley, aye. Roth? Roth, aye. Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Woke? Woke, aye. That's 13.
13-0, the motion passes. Issue 18 is on page 22, Department of State Hospitals.
Mr. Chair, Senators, so the issue before you is the enhanced treatment program and $11.5 million in general fund for the construction on retrofitting 44 rooms at the state hospitals to create the enhanced treatment program and provide an ability to lock these particular rooms for when we need to for people who are in the state hospitals.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Soderberg.
Drew Soderberg, we don't have any concerns with this proposal.
Right.
And I just want to mention on the staff recommendation, we do have concerns related to the trailer bill language. First of all, the first one, it seems to be attempting to completely change the way the Administrative Procedures Act work for regulations in this specific case. And I think, that would require a lot more conversation because we do have very strict Administrative Procedures Act guidelines that guide our regulation process across state government, not just specific to the state hospitals, but in all areas of government. And this seems outside of that scope to do some sort of additional reporting to the legislature related to normal regulations that we are promulgating all the time in government. Also, again, here, we do not support the Inspector General oversight of the state hospital system. The Inspector General has a very important role over our state prisons, but in terms of the state hospitals, we have a different rubric of oversight that includes the Department of Public Health, as well as the federal government and the rules related to CRIPA that the state must comply with. So at this point, we do not support the trailer bill language that's attached to this proposal.
Thank you, Ms. Bosler. Senator Hancock.
Yes, I would like to move the staff recommendation. And just to explain to some of the members that haven't been in on all the discussions, the state hospitals are 95% referrals of people from the prisons and the courts. These are mentally ill people. What enhanced treatment program means is yes, locked doors, which we agree are necessary, but we've explored how is this different from solitary confinement. Well, it would be different if there was therapeutic program that came along with it. One of the difficulties is that last year, the special master on Coleman v. Brown, which is the report on the treatment of mentally ill inmates, found many lacks in our level of care of people. That individual therapy is rarely offered, that all of the different hospitals have different protocols and different treatments that go on. We're really, there's new leadership in the department. We're very hopeful that we're going to really get a new and improved system of care for these people. So what the motion does is, yes, we are going to add the locked units and the money to do that, but the placeholder trailer bill language requires the Department of State Hospitals to submit draft policies, procedures, and regulations that will guide the operation of these enhanced units. And in addition, we believe that it is wise to ask the Inspector General to monitor the activation and report back to the legislature. So those are the reasons.
Thank you, Senator Hancock. It's a good articulation of the issue before us. Before we get to public comment, Senator Bell.
Well, we had a little difference of opinion in our committee. When this came up, the previous item that we just voted on requires the bottom of page 21, if you want to look at it. The trailer bill, which expands the duties to provide independent oversight over the Department of State Hospitals. So what we did in the committee is we said we were discussing whether or not we should have this oversight by the Office of Inspector General focus on the enhanced treatment facility, or should we make it more general so it focuses on the enhanced treatment facility, but also the other parts of the state hospital. And my view is, in the committee when we discussed it, was I favored the latter. So I'd like to have the last, not the part about the policies and regulations, because Senator Hancock is right. We need to have some kind of guidance, and that should be based on AB 1340, which passed, and it had some specific things in that bill that created the enhanced treatment facility. It was a legislative bill that created the enhanced treatment facility. But I'd like to strike the or like to have a separate vote, I'll just put the way it said, respectful differences, for the last placeholder language sentence in this staff recommendation, because that wasn't something that in the committee we agreed to, so.
So just to be clear, you would like to separate out as a second motion
Yeah.
the adoption of the placeholder language requiring the Inspector General to monitor the activation and use of the enhanced treatment program.
Yeah,
And report.
And I point out that, again, that on the last item on page 21, there's a placeholder bill language that was just approved that provides independent oversight over the whole state hospital system. So not just the enhanced treatment facility, but all the parts of the state hospital system, which I think is probably, to be honest about it, differing with the staff here, I think that's probably something that would help us make a better state hospital system if we did that.
Okay, but refocusing on the item before us, I explained your request to separate out as a second motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Senator Nielsen.
I want to be clear here, though. This talks about the protocols of restraints for individuals. Do these motions preclude then what have been normal protocols within the hospitals for security steps that need to be taken for individuals? Because I'm going to tell you, our psych techs out there have lots of problems, and we have in our institutions now I would argue, a more dangerous class of individuals, much more dangerous than before, and less amenable to treatment. Now, we want to do all we can for that class of people, but we ought not think that these are individuals who are not dangerous. They're very dangerous. So I want to make it very clear that these protocols that are now in place are not going to be thrown out the window. Am I clear of that?
No, hardly. And LAO, if you can help me through this. My understanding is that part of the motion that Senator Hancock has put forward is to approve the governor's proposal for funding to finish this retrofitting for these 44 rooms, so there will be greater security, which addresses your concern for the staff there.
Yeah.
That's correct. These E2Us would be designed specifically for individuals who DSH's current protocols don't service well. Those protocols would remain in place for the existing population, but these would be enhanced treatment units for those individuals that they've had difficulty dealing with to date.
Okay, thank you, Senator Nielsen. So we do have some public comment before we take our vote. Is this microphone on? I think we're bringing you a new mic because we want to hear you.
Sounds like you're on now.
As if I'm not loud enough. As I was saying,
Thank
there
you.
you go. We were one of the sponsors of AB 1340 last year, and we convened a stakeholder meeting of basically all interested parties in order to get all sides and all things heard and talked about. And one of the ideas talked about was Office of Inspector General. However, we decided to go in a different direction, and we did put in several different safeguards in place and due process along with many different factors, as Mr. Bell adequately pointed out. And we'd like to thank Mr. Bell and Senator Anderson for being co-authors of that bill. That bill passed out of this body 36-0. So we fully support the governor's proposal, and we don't think it is necessary to put the Office of Inspector General into this particular proposal because that item was already discussed, and we really dispensed with it last year. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mark Victoria, Aspen Local 2620. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I just want to say we do stand here in support of the funding for the ETPs, and do want to comment, we represent the mental health clinicians within the state hospitals. And yes, we do provide a tremendous amount of group therapy as well, but just in contrast to what the special master said, there is a tremendous amount of individual therapy that is provided for these. So this isn't just, putting people in locked rooms and forgetting about them. It is about therapeutic, therapies to get them out of those units. So thank you.
That's reassuring to know. Thank you.
Heather Staley, also Ask Me 2620. I am also an employee at Kalinga State Hospital, and we have a pilot program there running, which is similar to the enhanced treatment program. And I can just echo that the program has been very successful. We've taken some of the most violent patients within the hospital and provided them with enhanced treatment, which is the goal, is to provide enhanced treatment to help them to come in better control of their own behavior. And I've seen numerous patients being released from that unit back into the rest of the hospital, much improved. They're no angel, but their violence is greatly reduced, and they found ways to control their own behavior. So we are very much in support of this program. Thank you.
Thank you.